Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 7th Create It and Crush It Masterclass. Today, we have Paula Diaco here, and Paula is sharing about creating your signature story and how to use storytelling to elevate and share your message. So we are so thankful to have you here today, Paula. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's always fun to be with you, and I love talking about stories.
Yes. So Paula is a writing coach and a master storyteller. She helps her clients to craft their stories, create amazing content, write their books, and show up just in a really authentic way so that they can create more credibility, connection, and success in their businesses. So that is why she is the perfect person to share this with us today, to talk about creating your signature story and to help you use that in your brand and in your business.
Yeah,
so
thank
Paula,
you.
What I usually start these blabs with is just asking you how community and support has impacted your business. And the reason I like to ask that is because the whole point of Create It and Crush It is that we all have really unique skill sets, knowledge, expertise areas. And I think when we come together, we really can be that rising tide that lifts all boats. So for you, I would just love to know, how has community impacted your business? How has support impacted your business? And then after you tell us that, we'll let you dive right in.
Okay, sure. So, no man is an island and no woman is an island either. We all need community, even if we're shy and introverted, which I self-profess to be. But you can't do it all alone. And why would you even want to? Why would you go in business and then just seclude yourself as a recluse over in the corner and not want to either get help or to communicate your message to people who want to hear from you, or if nothing else, have a cup of coffee with someone. I mean, literally sitting down, for instance, I had lunch today with a colleague. We caught up. And for my other business, I just hired her to do some marketing work. And if I hadn't had coffee and lunch with her, I wouldn't even know how skilled she was in her marketing analytics and whatnot. So it was great. Like, she came to lunch and got a job, and and I'm getting really, really good help. I'm getting really, really good help. So
I love that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun when you can make connections.
And by the way, that doesn't have to be offline or online, right? Like, you can have a Skype coffee date with somebody. You can have in-person lunch, either way, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love doing both. I think it's really good. I think it's just getting to know other people, understanding what they do, whether they can help you or they can help someone so you can pass referrals on to them and vice versa. So it's a two-way street. And I have always sought the company of other entrepreneurs because I know I don't know everything, and I know I have certain skill sets that are really good, but sometimes I need help. And so I'd rather go to the people who are the professionals and, work with them. So I love community.
Thank you for sharing that. You're so right. Like, it's not always about getting the job, but sometimes you just show up for the coffee date and you get the job, right? So, or
that's right,
to hire someone amazing. So thank you for sharing that story. That was awesome. All right, let's dive right into storytelling. What do we need to know first?
Okay, so signature story. I think that some people call them brand stories. I mean, with story, you can be very kind of flexible. But the whole deal with story is, and I go back to this all the time because I have a science background, it's in biology, and maybe I knew this intuitively when I was, in science, I'm not sure, but humans are wired for story. We seek it out on a daily basis. We create it out of whole cloth. We show up and we are giving stories, we're receiving stories, we're listening to stories. So people don't even realize what a constant stories are in their daily life. And story has again become like the sexiest thing in the business world. The corporate world has grabbed it and is running like crazy with it because it so supports their marketing messages in such a beautiful, beautiful way. In the small business arena, it's been a little slower. There's been a little bit more convincing around what story will do for you as a business owner, but there's no denying when I bring it up from the standpoint of it being in our DNA. I think that there has to have been some genomic, work done on human chromosomes, and they found it. I just have to find the name of the story genes because I know they're in there.
I watched a commercial the other day on TV, and literally the scene they showed or the story they presented, right, had like nothing to do with the product at all, actually. But it elicited this emotional response for me. And then they presented the product, right? And I just thought to myself, like, gosh, that's so genius because they really don't even combine. But I'm in this place now. They've taken me to this emotional place, and now I'm getting presented the product. Like, that's exactly what you're talking about, right? Big brands using this in big ways.
For sure. Yeah, they really are, because stories elicit emotional responses quite often. And, sometimes the advertising industry, if you don't like the thing that they're selling, you kind of resent the fact that they're eliciting those emotional responses because they're sucking you in and you're like, oh, they did it again.
They got me.
They got me and I bought it, or I'm sending a donation or whatever. But, I love looking at nonprofit storytelling. There's also some of the best, and I'm sure they work with ad specialists and ad experts. But, especially for causes that you're especially fond of or, want to support, some of the ads, I mean, you're crying. You're crying looking at a print ad, and it's a photo and like this much text, and it elicits such an emotional response. So the small business owner can use it to their advantage, and it's really, really easy to do. And it can start with something like their bio, which could be a 300-word or less story about where they came from and what has brought them to doing what they're doing today.
That's good. I'm interested in that. Like my bio is like, I did the things, right? It's not like, here's my story. That's so good. I love that.
Yeah. Because we all have something that we have traveled with through our life, even if it's just within the last couple of weeks, that is bringing us to this point where we're offering something to people that's going to help them. And we want to understand what gives that person who's saying they do X service or offer some sort of product, what gives them the right to say that they can offer that and it's legitimate. What is their background? And it isn't even necessarily their degrees or education, although it certainly can be, and that's not to say they're not important, but really, where were you in the trenches? Where were you doing this? And what were the results? And I'm going to follow the person, even if I don't need their service, I'm going to follow the person who has a story to tell around, I was here and now I'm here and I can help you do the same thing. Because they've been through whatever it is, and you have to have respect for that, whatever it is.
So tell me this, I'm sitting here thinking, like, what is our audience thinking, right? Because most people watch these via replay. And so what I would maybe be thinking is, like, if I'm a new entrepreneur, like, what's my in the trenches story? If I'm just starting up, like, do I use old stories? Do I use maybe just my new story? Like, what's the thing there?
It depends on the audience, because you don't have a single bio, all right? You don't have to have a single bio. So much like an article, you can angle it to the audience that you're trying to get in front of. So I could, and I do, tell people, I have a science background and I have magazine articles, that many in the science and genetic engineering field. And back when that was relevant for me to get jobs from biomedical corporations, you bet I hammered pretty hard on those, bits of expertise and that talent and the education and the fact that I worked in technical publications at a Fortune, 5 company, et cetera, because it was totally relevant. But if I now today am going to work with solo entrepreneurs who may be, I don't know, coaches of some sort, it's probably not going to, that's not going to be relevant anymore.
They're not
so
like,
my experience
cool. They're like, okay, so, right?
Yeah, you so don't fit my needs, right? Because like, I don't care that you know what a centrifuge is and could write a manual about it, because it's not really relevant to my day-to-day experience. So instead, I talk about being a small business owner and how much it's like, even being an online business owner, I'm finding not a whole lot of big difference, except that I don't have this brick and mortar when I work online. Yeah, and so I find the things that they are going to relate to, and it's all true. You don't make it up, obviously, but you just angle it so that the person receiving it's going to know that you're legitimate, you're authentic, you're capable. And for me, a sense of humor is fun. I want to work with people who are fun, and I can be funny, and I like it when other people are funny, so I might throw a little humor in so they know I'm not so serious. That's not me. That's so not me. So that's what you do, because it's a lot of fun. And I want to work with people like that. So that's what you do in a bio. And you can do it in a longer form on your About Me page.
I love that. So I think that's a really, really good takeaway here, is that we're not lying, we're not changing facts, but we're being really smart about what matters and what we want to like very succinctly communicate to our ideal client who's reading like that under 300 word bio, right? Like, so it doesn't have to be, I did all the things. It gets to be like, here's my story of relevant things, and this is why you should care, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Exactly right. So you pick and choose the little aspects of your life and put it into a nice cohesive bio, and use it for that reason. And it'll shift over time, even with audiences, but it'll shift over time. And what used to be relevant isn't any longer if your business has shifted. So you just keep going back and reapplying storytelling technique and, letting people know what it is you do so that they can want to work with you. They want to hang around with you.
Love that. So good. Thank you, Paula. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So what's next?
So, so we now know that story is really important. It's in our everyday existence. I even tell people, some people don't. Let me just go back to that just quickly, because this is always funny. I ask people, are they aware? When I give workshops, I ask them, are you really aware of how much story influences your everyday life? And sometimes people are like, I don't tell stories, and that they're not, unless I'm watching TV or something like that. And I ask them, do you ever gossip, or do you ever receive gossip? And nobody can deny that.
Like,
everybody
maybe.
does. And gossip, they're like, yeah, so, and I'll say, there you go. It's a whole bunch of storytelling, but the thing is with gossip is a lot of it is, it's gossip, so it's made up. So you don't want to bring that into the business place, but we learn from the time we're very young, telling stories about other people who've done us wrong, or who have achieved great success, or are strange, or who are awesome. We learn that from certainly by the time we're in school. As elementary grade students, we're learning story. And, story follows certain parameters. And I think I mentioned this to you when I sent you some of what I was going to talk about today. But like the structure of a story, Freytag's pyramid is a classic story in 3 acts type of thing, where, you start with your exposition. So let's say you're writing a blog post. And a blog post is, in fact, a story. And you can write it as an article, but it has more story elements rather than a laundry list type of blog post. And, you set the scene, you meet the characters. Maybe it's all about you, but maybe you're also talking about a client that you did some work for, and you're excited to share what the results were of that. So you set the scene. And then there's something called the inciting incident, which is where something happens. Action actually takes place. And the starts the whole conflict process. Because stories that are about how it was a sunny day in June and we had lemonade and then we went swimming and then we had dinner and then we went to bed, like, so not interesting. That is not interesting. It's lovely for you, but no one's going to read it. And it's not that you have to have, like devastating things to report or, talk about the mean people in your life, but you do need to have some sort of conflict. And the conflict could be as simple as you have a client who couldn't master their email software. And you, being a champion of email software and an expert, came in and helped them segment their list and to get newsletters together and to program it so it's all automated and all I have to do is click on a button and it's handled for them. That's like a major conflict for your client that you it's just
like the
solved.
Hero's journey, right?
You freaking solved. Yeah, it totally is. So you have the exposition, the inciting incident, and then Freytag's pyramid starts going up, and this is where you're having all the conflict. There's tension, 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 conflict, 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 until the climax. And like that is the ultimate conflict in the story. It's like the part where you go,
I was going to quit my business, or yeah.
Right, yes, I was going to quit my business, or I was seeing, my business coming and I broke my leg, or I discovered, God forbid, I got really ill in some way. It's like, what happened? What happened then? So it's the moment of the greatest amount of tension. And then you have the falling action, which is in response to what comes out of the climax. So the greatest tension is released, and then it's like, well, then what happened? I picked myself up, and even though I was receiving chemotherapy, I was able to work 2 days a week and accomplish and get my book written. I got my book written, whatever. Then you have the resolution. The character solves the problem, and there's some sort of transformation that takes place. We're always talking about transformation in story, and it could be a subtle thing. Like years ago, I was selling jewelry, and I was talking to another colleague, and I said, your business always has to solve a problem, move people emotionally, or cause a transformation. And she looked at me flat out, and she said, so tell me, what in God's name does jewelry do to solve a problem?
I got you.
And I said, oh, sit down, honey. I got it for you. It's like, I have men coming and buying jewelry for their wives, for their birthday, for Christmas, for whatever. I said, if that isn't solving a conflict, you go talk to those men who had no idea what to get their wives. And this nice woman had beautiful jewelry that they know their wife wanted. I solved a problem. And she said, okay, you got me. You're right. You did. It's not the problem I want to solve, but you totally did it. Yeah. And then so you have the resolution, and then the end, where any remaining secrets or questions are revealed, or you can even leave it a little bit open-ended so that you can have a sequel. So it just automatically brings you into a sequel, and you can talk about further aspects of the big story.
So I really
have
to share this with you because this is so relevant. So I saw this Facebook ad the other day. And it was super, super long form. Like the copy for the Facebook ad was like probably one of the longest ads I've ever seen. And it was this guy, he was selling something. I looked him up and I was like, oh, he's so full of crap, right? I read that whole thing. I literally took a screenshot of it. Mm-hmm. I saved it. One of my business friends did the same thing, sent it to me later and was like, have you seen this ad? And we were just going crazy over this ad because you just knew from like looking elsewhere that he was like probably full of crap, but it was a story and it was long form and it was incredibly compelling. Like, so even though we were like, I mean, I would never buy this necessarily. I can't stop reading it. Like, I'm so intrigued. I'm going to click on his link. I'm going to try to find out more. Right. And it was just the power of story was so obvious there how it just like sucks you in,
Yes.
right?
It does. It does. And there's a lot of hypey type of marketing that takes place online, and it uses that same sort of very compelling,
Yes.
urgent, scarcity, do it now, $1 million. And there's lots of little stories within that whole context. And people by the end are like frothing. They can't wait to push the button and spend however many dollars because they caught them. They totally got them sucked into. I've been on some live streams that just had people in a frenzy to buy because the power of story. This is where I took this person from this awful situation to that one, so whatever. That's not my jam at all. I don't care for that. I really like authenticity, and that's where your signature story can be and should be, of course, totally authentic. Your signature story. What do you want to be known for? What were the significant things in your life that brought you to be who you are today? So that you can stand up and say, I am, whatever it is you want to announce yourself as, and I'm here because. And you can rattle off whatever experiences, education, whatever has brought you to that point. My own signature story that I'm using currently came out of me giving a presentation back in February of this year to a local group of women entrepreneurs. And I was actually writing up a whole bunch of story exercises for people to do. And I realized right then and there, like I had been using a different signature story, and I realized for these women, my new signature story was that as a little girl, I became interested in writing like very, very young. My parents are writers, and I wrote a novel, about a beautiful black panther who was at the zoo, the Bronx Zoo. And even as a little girl, I recognized that the cement floor and the iron bars were so incredibly cool, and how he walked back and forth. I mean, my heart went out to that cat. And this is before the days of zoos being even something, resembling rational for animals. And I went home and I started writing that novel because I felt so bad. And my ending was that he broke free and lived with a nice family the rest of his life, because I wanted so much, for that poor panther to live a good life. And then I also, at the same time, was very interested in the fact that you could offer things for sale and people would pay for them and you could make money. So I had, the quintessential lemonade stand. I had I think I picked some beautiful big black-eyed Susans. They were huge, like big flowers, and sold them like on the side of the road in front of our house. And people paid me for it. So I thought, well, I'm going to advance it one step further. I must have gone to a beautiful, like, open public garden. And I was so impressed by the beautiful beds of flowers and the beautiful topiary and whatever. And so I went home and I got my little neighborhood kids to help me rake the wooded paths behind our house where we used to go to school, and make it all neat and tidy. And okay, there was no topiary, there were no beautiful beds of perennials, but those paths were so neat. They were so tidy, and we were like 7 years old. And I told my parents, I said, it'll be 5 cents for a tour. And they took the tour, and I said, and we're going to get all of the parents in the neighborhood. And they said, I'm sad to inform you, but we're probably going to be the only ones who are going to tour this. But it's very public. You did a wonderful job, but probably not something you're going to make a whole lot of money out of. But I saw then how interesting it is to offer your services, like what you can do, and have people pay money for it. So there I was speaking to a group of entrepreneurs, I myself as an entrepreneur, about writing story. I hatched all that way back in my life, and it was showing up. That is who I am. That is so who I am. It is my signature story, and it's unique. Nobody else has it. A signature story should obviously be unique. And so I suggested to all of them, we actually did an exercise where they were to think about where they came from and how it's informing them today. And a bookkeeper ran with that exercise, was the speaker the next month, and showed up and told a story about how she was not good with numbers as a kid until she was in 4th grade, and the teacher took her aside and said, by the end of the year, you're going to love math, which she thought was preposterous. And she did, and now today she's a bookkeeper. And at the end of her talk, I said, you did such an amazing job with your presentation. I mean, bookkeeping is not really my kind of thing. And yet you had me on the edge of my seat. She said, I used your exercise from the month before. You said, what is your signature story? And she started with her signature story. It was just like awesome.
I love this.
Like and it brought everybody, and it got her to present at a larger conference, local conference. I recommended her and said, you know, if you want somebody to talk about finances, you need to have this woman speak. So it did. Having a signature story opened doors for her.
Yeah, and I think also what strikes me the most there is 2 things. Is one is like a lot of times we think that our story, like the guy that I told you, right? I don't know that he's full of crap or not. I'm pretty sure he is. But the point is like you don't have to like make something up. You don't have to make it extra sexy if it's not true. You get like you don't even have to make it or you have to make it relevant, but you don't even have to make it have happened within the last 2 years. Like you can go way back and still craft this story. You can still make it relevant, and you know, you can still make it super authentic in you and feel really good about what you're saying, not feel like you have to craft something.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, you're pulling totally from your life. So just tell us what happened. I mean, literally the people were sitting on the edge of their seat listening to how could this woman go from scared, really, really scared of numbers to getting a degree in accounting, offering bookkeeping and accounting services, and actually sitting down with her clients and strategizing around finances so that their businesses would do better. She said, never in a million years as a 10-year-old would I have imagined that. And yet by 11, I so loved numbers that the rest of my school years were all about numbers. That's a great little
and also
story.
I would say like that's what would make me want to invest with that person, right? Because there's like clearly passion there, right? There's like deep-seated long-term passion, and that's what makes me know like you are gonna want to show up and do a good job. So I'm not like, well, I learned this thing about 6 months ago and I decided that it was cool and whatever. It's like this is like happened when I was 10, and this has been like my driving force since then. I mean, that's huge, right? Like that's like take my money.
Yeah, it really is huge. Now, that said, you know, if I work with someone in their 20s, they don't have, you know, they're young, okay? So maybe or maybe not, they have something when they were 10 that is significant, but I would be willing to bet that they are being drawn to what they're doing now because of something maybe that happened in the previous couple of years that just opened them up, that made them awake, that startled them to attention that might not have if they hadn't thought about it. But I do think that probably when people are happiest doing what they're doing, there is a long ago history that comes into play. And they just didn't realize it because they did this job, that started that career, got this degree, went over here and stopped working altogether to travel around the world. And when they stop and think about it, they realize, you know what, I had, you know, a relative who showed me how to whittle as a kid, and that now allows me to do, I don't even know what today, but something really interesting.
I wanted to be a plastic surgeon for a period of time when I was a kid, and I would like always laugh with my mom, like I wonder like why I wanted to do that. That seems so like not authentic to me anymore. And she was like, you just thought it was like how you were going to make people happy and feel good. And I'm like, okay, I get that. Like that's always been my thing. How can I make people happier, feel good, be excited, right? So I totally hear you. It's like doesn't even have to be remotely relevant. It's more like what was the lesson there? Or what were you after?
Exactly. That's right. It's how you were seeking to be known and happy yourself is what you pursued, you know, or were frustrated around. So, you know, stories, just like articles or mini stories, bios I mentioned, about me
Wow.
pages are great opportunities for telling story, blog posts. First you need to have something relevant to your audience who's going to read it, but how you slant it is also important. So I mentioned, what bio I would use for this group of people in this industry wouldn't be the same one that I use for a totally different industry. So you can slant things to suit your audience. Again, drawing from everything that's true about you, you just have the emphasis placed differently than you would otherwise. And
so yeah, I was just going to say, like, thinking again of like a question that like our audience might be having. So one of my questions would be like, does my signature story need to match or be in line with my ideal client's story maybe, or is it okay if they're not necessarily the same?
I think it's okay that they're not necessarily the same. As long as perhaps the crux of what you're about matches theirs. Something that you are demonstrating they hold as important or in high regard, even though it may not be what they have done or are interested in doing, but they get it that you achieve something that is significant to them and they respect it. So no, it doesn't have to be
that makes a lot of sense because we're doing this live stream challenge right now. Obviously, you're participating, right? And so one of them, she was saying in there that she was having a hard time telling her story because her story is very different. Like, so she helps people with tech stuff because she thinks it's easy and she loves it. And her ideal client really struggles with that. And she was like, I can't match them because my story isn't like I've struggled with tech and then I overcame it, right? So I love that you're like, it's just like, what did you struggle with and overcome? And they can relate there. It doesn't have to be tech, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't work with people around numbers because numbers, even though I'm a scientist, have a scientific background, scare the bejesus out of me. I don't want to. I'm not good with numbers, okay? Like the woman who gave her talk, I understood everything she said because she could talk at my level, and she did get numbers. And like I was excited at the end that I could understand what she was saying, and it was so, so relevant. But I have struggled with numbers, but I've not really ever struggled with words, with the exception of, a few times in high school when the grammarian teachers decided to take it upon themselves to really hammer we students about ending a sentence with a preposition, which is all bogus rules, totally bogus rules. But we were all like, so, that can develop a little bit of procrastination or writer's block. But I'm a word person. Like, that is my world. I'm comfortable with words. And writing is not hard for me. So, but numbers are. And I will often say to people, I understand your procrastination because I procrastinate around doing number stuff. Budgeting, accounting for my other business. It's why I call in the experts because I'm not the girl for that job. So, it's not the same thing, but it will parallel their experience.
It's almost like it doesn't matter what that thing is. It's like, what are you procrastinating around? And then how do we get you support with that, right?
Exactly.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Totally. I'm so glad I asked you that. Thank you.
Yeah. So to make a story even better, what I suggest to people is they just write the bones of the story. Just write a rough draft. Get everything out, and don't stop yourself along the way. We're very quick to edit ourselves, and that's ego, in the form of this little ugly editor on our shoulder whispering in our ear that we are terrible, we're no good. Who do we think we are to write?
Nobody likes
really?
it.
And everything you're writing, nobody likes it. No one's ever going to like it. You're never going to write something good. And we start to edit, I used the wrong word, blah, blah, blah. No, I work with people, I have them just write. And write from the heart. Even though it's a business story, the best stories, as you demonstrated earlier, Lacey, with the ad that you saw, had an emotional pull. And rough drafts can carry incredible beautiful energy and vitality that if we just let it out, we can then play with and work with. And sure, then you can edit. Then you can finish your sentences and have complete sentences if that's relevant. But you want to just get that out. And, you know, writing, especially like book writing, is sort of a layered process. You have the rough draft, and then it really should be edited for detail, accuracy, and then you want to add things perhaps like dialogue to make it really interesting. You want to add specific detail, and the way you do that is by using really strong, vibrant nouns and beautiful, strong verbs, not adjectives so much, and not adverbs, especially the ones ending in ly. So easily, quickly, because they're very vague. And adjectives sometimes can make it start to sound a little amateurish and not really professional. But if you have really, yeah, so if you are talking about the car you're driving, it's the, you know, Toyota Prius that you're driving. If you're talking about the services you offer, you talk about specific services. You know, like the tech gal can talk about, you know, let's say she does SEO, so we can SEO optimize your pages so that people will find you and know what it is you do. You want to use strong language that's specific and detailed. And, you know, you can add beautiful language. And you can add beautiful language and start to recognize beautiful language, maybe words you don't normally use. Good writers are good readers, okay? And even business writers, I recommend that they read fiction and certain nonfiction by really good authors who use language in ways that are not used normally in marketing communications per se. It doesn't need to be all staccato, sort of sentences. They can be compound and complex with, you know, all sorts of little clauses added onto them to draw people in. The language draws people in and excites them as they're reading the story, and it makes them memorable. It makes then you memorable. And that I get very excited about language and words. I just truly love it.
No, you're so right, though. I just like put some new quotes up behind me, and one of them is Roald Dahl from James and the Giant Peach. And like, I still remember that story, right? And when I was hanging it up, I said to my husband, like, oh, did you read Roald Dahl when you were younger? And he was like, no. And I was like, oh my God, I can't even imagine having missed out on that.
Right.
The words and those stories. Like, I just felt bad for him, right? Yeah. And I think it's what you're saying, because like, he didn't have that like richness of reading experience, right? Because that really changes how you see words and how you see the stories you're telling, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I couldn't have said it better. Totally. And children's literature is totally filled with great language because they tend to be shorter. So the authors really have to get the point across as concisely as possible. And so they use really strong verbs and really vibrant, specific nouns. They just have to do that. So I totally, I'm going to start recommending people start reading James and the Giant Peach. Because like, if they can write like Roald Dahl in their marketing communications, oh my God, they're just going to totally transform what they're saying and how they say it.
Your next challenge, Paula, is like, you should have a book club and we should read James and the Giant Peach. I'm totally in for that.
Yeah, that would be so much fun. He's such a beautiful writer anyway, and so funny, so cheeky. So cheeky.
Okay, so takeaway number 4, read James and the Giant Peach.
Yeah, read James and the Giant Peach, required reading before we work together, right? One of the other things you can do, and you can do this in any type of writing, blog posts, articles, whatever, is start your piece in the action. You don't need your articles to be chronological. In fact, chronological can often be kind of boring. So start in the action, like stuff is already taking place. Like you're just jumping right in, and there could be language in there, people in dialogue, or there can be somebody doing something that's like either atrocious or incredibly awesome, and you're just taking people into the story as it's already begun.
So maybe I would say something like, tell me if this is right, because I want to give an example and I want to make sure I'm following. I might say something like, I get it. You're sitting there right now, pulling your hair out at your computer, looking for the right answer or something like that. Like almost like be in the moment with them is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah. You can even, bring it down to, I'm on my computer and my browser is up and I'm furiously looking for this particular program that everyone says is the rave, and if I don't have it by 4 p.m., my business is doomed. What?
And you're like, what's this program? How is your business doomed? Tell me more.
Right, exactly. So you're like, I need to know. And, obviously your business really needs to have been doomed, or else that's really hyping marketing and communication. So
I got that. That's good.
So let's not, I'm not condoning that. So start the story in action. It makes for a really interesting start to a story, and it's very, very engaging. And, again, at the end, really demonstrate that transformation that took place. What has happened? And you may not even like the transformation. The transformation to you may not be like a win. And that is interesting too. Again, we're not writing all nicey nice stuff. Sometimes things happen to people that aren't awesome, but they've been transformed in some way. Maybe they've been disappointed yet again. And your next article can show about how they can be pulled out of that, depression or that disappointment from something that you offer, or something that you tell them, or something that you suggest they do. So it doesn't have to be, and it doesn't all have to be terrible either. I mean, you have to know your audience. I mean, there frankly are some bloggers who are like, tell us way more than I want to know. I'm not comfortable with that. And I'm not saying you don't have to do that, but it's like, for me, it's not all that cool. But sometimes you just really need to tell the truth, and you need to I'm going to be on, start with, I'm going to be honest here. There's some things going on that are really disturbing to me, and have the statistics to back it up, or have a quote from someone who demonstrates that, and say, and this is what's going on in my world. We're doing this, and it's overcoming that, whatever.
You know what I've been seeing a lot lately, and I so would love your take on this. So I've been seeing a lot of people that'll say, like at the top of a post or a blog post or Facebook post, they'll say in all capital letters, like vulnerable post alert. Have you seen that? And part of me is like, come on, like always be vulnerable, like always show up authentically. And then the other part of me is like, I read every damn one of those because I'm curious. So it's kind of interesting.
I know. Mm-hmm. It is. It for sure is. And I think you need to use that very expeditiously. Don't be relying on that as your sole form of telling story, because after a while people are going to be like, oh, really? She's vulnerable again? Or we get it. She needs to stop being so vulnerable. Is she not transforming? So, use it. And I think, frankly, they're using that as a headline to draw people in, and headlines are uber important. I mean, headlines are attractive initially. And I think I said in my live stream yesterday about articles, the headline brings them in, and then the first line is your hook, and it's your slant, and it lets you know what kind of expect what's going to go on, and the hook just grabs them so that they'll read the rest of the story. And they're using that as a headline, and yep, it does work. But I would love instead for their first sentence to be the kicker. I woke up this morning and, literally could not get out of bed because of the pain in my knees, or I don't know. I'm making stuff up, but
if you want to be vulnerable, just go on in and be vulnerable, right?
Just do it. Just like get us right into the action of your vulnerability. You don't need to announce it ahead of time.
That's so good what you just said. I want you to say that again. Get it, or I'll say it. Get us into the action of your vulnerability. So good, you guys.
Yeah. You don't need to announce it ahead of time, right?
Warning.
Just jump right in. Right. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's so good too, because you're not like saying, well, I'm not vulnerable the rest of the time, and now I am. You're just like bringing us with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Okay, last question I have for you. Well, probably not. I could ask you 1,000, but one that I want to make sure I ask you is, so we talked about having your signature story, right? So I think what you're saying and what your message is have this signature story. And it's like the thing that you tell when you meet new people, or like if you were to give a speech or on your About Me page, but make everything you do a story too, like your posts, your blogs, right? So like you're not saying tell that same story everywhere. You're saying have your signature story and then bring storytelling to all of your marketing, right?
Yeah, yes. Stories, data tells, stories sell. If you want to bring it down to that level. And so if you've got that data, wrap it in a story. So data tells us. It's great. Analytics tell us a lot. But what's the story?
X, right?
Yes. Yep, these number of people from these regions in this demographic visited my website. Oh, good. So I'm capturing the people who, I most want to have come to my website, and they're clicking through and they're buying a program. Awesome. So data tells, but stories sell. Again, you demonstrated earlier. You read the vulnerable posts. You read the ad from the guy who's probably full of baloney. I am too, but I look at them now from the standpoint of a storyteller. What did they do? What did they do to suck us in? And yes, you absolutely can use your signature story everywhere, like like your bio. And I see that with a lot of professionals. They reference the same cool things like all over the place, because you know what? They are pretty profound achievements, and they want to be known for those things, and it's okay to keep bringing them up. It's perfectly fine. Do that. And then in your ongoing marketing communications, try to use some storytelling skills just to make everything interesting so that you keep engaging your audience.
So everyone that knows me knows that I'm a huge Gary Vee fan. I love Gary Vee, right? Yeah. And on his YouTube channel, he has, a big collection of all of his speeches that he's done, his keynote speeches. And he gets paid a lot of money for these speeches. Like we're talking like 5 figures, upwards of that, right?
Yep.
They're all relatively the same, right? Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll watch all of them, but you're exactly right. He tells the same story in every one of them, and it still remains compelling. But here's the thing: now he's known for that story, and people want him to come tell that story for them, right?
Yeah, they do, and he shifts it up. I mean, he's, I haven't watched all of his keynotes, but I love the story. I think you shared it in your group where he sent the T-shirt to a wine library client. Yeah, the jersey. And didn't even get a thank you, and he's wondering, like, geez, the guy couldn't even thank you, but that guy's friend ended up buying something like $4,000 worth of wine, and made sure to tell him it's because you sent the other guy a T-shirt. So he was probably expecting like a wardrobe of the NFL, whatever it was, because he spent $4,000, right? But it didn't matter. I mean, that was so engaging. Yes. I listened right to it. He's a master storyteller. Every time he stands up, he tells a story. And in it are the lessons we need to learn. But it's cloaked in, it's enveloped by a beautiful story.
So I love some of those keynotes, you guys, and see what Paul is talking about. He's absolutely right. Like, he is a master at storytelling, and it's why he's a master at advertising and marketing.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah.
Beautiful. This was so good, Paula. I feel like there are so many good takeaways here.
Great.
And really, I think even for me, it's driven home more. Like, I'm definitely not capitalizing on story in all the ways I could. So I'm sure other people feel like that. And I'm so grateful for you for sharing that with us.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. It was a lot of fun.
Cool.
Totally fun.
So tell everyone, if they want help with their story, how they can find you, what kinds of ways you work with people, and how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. So my website is Write Stories Now, WRITE, storiesnow.com. And they can definitely work with me in a variety of ways. I work a lot one-on-one with folks on determining who their audience is so they know the stories to tell that audience.
Getting
That's
their
called
signature story.
Getting their signature story done, their bio done, their elevator pitch, which is a story. Get all of that handled so that they're consistent. They go out there and they're speaking to the audience they most want to work with. That's a strategy. I call it a strategy workshop, and it's a lot of fun. And then for people who are they know who they're speaking to, and they know who their core audience is, and they just need to write, I offer something called Story Lab that they can come and for 2 hours get really a lot of writing done. And it's a simple process of writing to a prompt, and I pick random prompts that don't sound like they have anything to do with business, because I really want them to go to their heart and bring it out, as I mentioned before. And I have Story Lab clients right now who, within just an hour of writing, produce 1,000-word chapter of their book or a blog post that they can use. And I have a client, excuse me, right now who writes 2 blog posts every time we have a Story Lab. It's like awesome.
That's so good. Just to like know that like you're going to kind of take care of the prompt, but it's always going to be relevant.
Yep.
And you're always going to knock that out. Cool.
They knock it out. They totally knock it out. And I don't ever critique their work. It's positive feedback, which gives them then like energy to continue writing. Because when we receive criticism, we start to shut down.
And there's no like right way, right? Right.
No.
Right.
Yeah, no, there really isn't. I mean, the stories people tell, I mean, so incredibly good. So incredibly good. And they are amazed that they were able to get it out and tell people, you know, and like talk about themselves and how meaningful what they do is and why. It's just I just can't even put it into words how much I love that. I just love that.
Beautiful. You are so passionate, and I'm so grateful that everyone got to see how passionate you are and got to learn from you. Definitely find Paula at Write Stories Now. She's amazing. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to post this in the Facebook group so you can let us know. You can ask Paula any questions. If you need help crafting your signature story, let her know. And thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Paula. All right, everybody, have a great day.
Thanks so much. Take care. Bye now.